Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Katz. I'm 19 years old, and I graduated from South London Schools in 2013. Currently, I'm enrolled in the 5-year Master's Urban Education Program at the College of New Jersey and a student activist. I've testified before this board many times, and my goal is to always come here to listen, to learn, and to speak with well-researched testimony. But today I want to talk a little bit about myself. I've always loved school. But more than that, I always loved learning, which in many cases is lost in school due to the current test and punish tactics. I would spend my free time playing teacher and school. I would spend my time doing long division problems at my grandparents' kitchen table because I loved the feeling of successfully finishing a math problem. I also just loved math, which I was 2 years ahead in all the way through the beginning of high school. I would spend my free time writing stories, plays, creative pieces, poetry, and anything else that the pencil would draft because I simply love the feeling of being creative. I love science because my father and grandfather, both scientists, would come into school and do experiments with my class and sometimes the entire grade. I loved art and social studies and music. The clarinet managed to last 2 years in my hands. I loved learning, and to me, school was the place that happened. How naive I was. This was all until I reached high school, where I could not handle the pressure. I had suffered from minor school anxiety in middle school, but I did very well with the support of my parents and teachers. And despite suffering from minor school anxiety, I still enjoyed going to school. High school was a different story. On my first day of school, I walked in, froze at the entrance, and found myself in the counselor's office. I remember saying, I just can't handle the pressure. This was the first day of school. We hadn't even done anything yet. All I had running through my mind was, everything you do matters. How will I do on my SATs? What college am I going to? Do I have enough extracurriculars? What if I fail my final exams? All through middle school, I was reminded how scary, hard, and high stakes, high pressure school was going to be, and it got to me. Omitting the long, boring details, I ended up being diagnosed with severe school and separation anxiety. I was homeschooled for 4 months during my sophomore year, 4 years ago, almost to the month. The very end of October, November, December, January, and February, and then slowly started attending 1 class a day until I was back in school fully around April or May. It was the absolute worst experience of my life and exposed me to the ugly side of schooling. I remember sitting in the counselor's office and having the school administrator say to me, I don't get it. Why can't you just go to school like everyone else? I felt worthless, stupid, and I genuinely didn't understand why I couldn't go to school like everyone else. This experience destroyed my love of learning. Math, science, English, these are all subjects I still struggle with through college. All I think when I don't know the answer on a test is, why couldn't you go to school like everyone else? You're so stupid, you don't know the answer, what is wrong with you? I was damaged by the high stakes pressure, and I will forever suffer from that. But I made it out okay. I survived the system and still recognize that things I went through in school don't even compare to what students in other places go through and suffer from. The impacts of poverty, closing of neighborhood schools, underfunding, no textbooks, lack of teachers and 40 students in a class, the list is endless. I made it out okay because I had a teacher who taught me that I could be a successful learner, despite what my SAT or HESPA score or any other test score said. Yes, a teacher saved me. A teacher. During my junior year, I met the most unconventional teacher I've ever had. When we first met, I remember thinking this guy's a little weird. He did something I had never really been exposed to before. He taught us through discussions, sometimes very serious, sometimes more lighthearted, debate, reflection, personal experiences, guest speakers, and focused around current events that impacted our lives that we could connect to. Little did I know at that time that he would end up teaching me the greatest lesson I ever learned and what I needed at this time in my life. I was enough. It didn't matter what my test score said, and my love of learning would trump anything that a test could ever say about me. I will never forget the words he said to me in part. New beginnings weren't on any of the tests you were given over the past 12 years of your formal public education. But that's okay. Why? Because I know you'll figure it out. In the grand scheme of things, there are infinitely more activities that you should devote your time and energy to. You're smart enough to examine multiple career paths and hardworking enough to be successful at whatever path you choose. But there's more to life than choosing a career path. There are responsibilities that come with being educated. Please do me a personal favor. Never stop asking the questions that make policymakers and people in authority uncomfortable. Some people make a good living doing that. If you ever decide to have children or become an educational professional, as I am, fight for what is really important, their ability to learn and their love of learning. Learning doesn't look like school, but school should look a lot more like learning. The keepers of the status quo will be tough to combat, but not impossible. They fold like a cheap suit when populations become increasingly self-aware and question their leadership. Be a leader and a source of inspiration for people who are desperate for good leadership. These words are framed above my desk. They're what keep me going when the system tries to tell me otherwise. My teachers supported me through everything I went through when they knew the system was crushing me from the inside. I'm beyond thankful that I had people to believe in me, supported me, and guided me, despite being a part of a system that currently doesn't support different types of learners. I am here to do that personal favor to the teacher who changed my life. I am here to ask the questions that make the policymakers and people in authority sitting right in front of me uncomfortable. Humanity and respect have been lost in the discussion about education. Humanity and respect for students, teachers, and parents have been lost in the discussion. I never intended to come here and talk about me, but this is personal. We, all of us sitting here, are education in New Jersey. We are the students and the parents and the teachers and the taxpayers, and we are the fighters. Being a part of this movement has become a way to share my experiences and connect with others who can and have taught me so much about education, learning, schooling, and the reform movement. As a student and future teacher, this is an attack on me, my fellow students, my fellow future and current teachers and parents. This attack on our public schools and public education, I'm hoping, is going to shed light on the damage of these reforms in our school and push more parents to refuse the test as a way to fight for the education all of our children deserve. A well-rounded education that supports whatever type of learner they are and doesn't boil them down to one score that, in the grand scheme of life, means nothing. As a current student and former teacher, and future teacher, now former yet, I will not stop fighting until I know that my students one day will be treated as humans, as learners, and as explorers. I will not stop fighting until I know there is equitable education for all, for students who can't test well but are brilliant artists, for students who can't test well but make the most beautiful music to ever grace our ears, for the students who can't test well but are math geniuses, for the students who can't test well but are our future teachers, scientists, streamers, inventors, dancers, artists, musicians, historians, or whatever their passion is. We must move away from the test and punish regime in education before we destroy the love of learning for our students, no matter what they love or how they learn. We owe this to them and the future of education in this country. Thank you.
Don't ever give up your hope to become a teacher.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell you two words. It's the agony and the ecstasy. And it's a brand new job every day when you walk into that classroom. It's never the same. You go home happy, and some days you go home crying. Some days you go home late. Some days you might not even get home. That's how it is. But it's, again, there's the agony and there's the ecstasy. And you learn something.
Thank you.
You are self-directed in your future, and you will be a wonderful teacher. I came in through the alternate route and fell in love with the profession, and you have loved it for a long time, so you're going